Good afternoon. This is the Wednesday, November 20th meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission. Because there are people in the audience, if you wish to speak, please fill out a card and we'll call on you when your item comes up. Or if you have something that you want to address the commission about that's not on the agenda, then also fill out a card too. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Here.
Commissioner Horsley?
Here.
Commissioner Lohman?
Here.
Commissioner Rarback?
Here.
Commissioner Slocum?
Here.
Chair Draper?
Here. And just so that everybody knows, I have a cold, so if I sneeze, cough, or do something else, I apologize. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar? There are two items on the consent calendar, the minutes of September 18th and LAFCo file 19-10.
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The motion carries.
Through the chair, since Mr. Horsley is not here at the moment, we either need to note that on the minutes or wait until he
He was here.
returns.
He's here. Saw him.
Maybe we can do the motion again now.
All right. There was a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar, and there are two items on that. And so all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Abstain? Okay. The motion carries. Thank you. The item 3 is public comment for items not on the agenda. Does anybody wish to address us? Seeing none, we'll go on to item 4, which is LAFCo file 19-07, and it is regarding a proposed single-family home on 386 Dorado Way in San Mateo County.
So good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. This proposal is for an outside service agreement for sewer by the City of South San Francisco to a proposed single-family house at 386 Dorado Way, as shown on the map. The parcel is shown in blue. The property is currently developed, but the property owner proposes to demolish the existing structure to build a new home on the property. And a sewer connection is required for this future development, as an existing septic system or proposed septic system would not be adequate for the development. The project is within the sphere of influence of the City of South San Francisco and is contiguous to the city boundary. However, the city's general plan, which was adopted in 1999, currently does not permit the city to annex individual parcels in Country Club Park. And the unincorporated area of Country Club Park is shown kind of in that tannish color. So all those parcels are in the unincorporated area. The city's general plan states there's no portion of the area should be annexed unless the entire area of Country Club Park is annexed. In recognition of this policy and the constraint that it places on the city, and with the city's ongoing general plan update, LAFCo staff supports an outside service agreement in lieu of annexation. However, as a condition of approval of its outside service agreement, the property owner shall record a document consenting to future annexation of the property. LAFCo remains engaged in the South City's general plan update process. There have been a number of additional inquiries from property owners within the Country Club Park area that the LAFCO staff has been working with. There have also been a number of changes since the 1999 general plan, including the demand for housing, especially accessory dwelling units, that might need septic systems and might need further looks at how we plan for development in this area in the future. In light of these changes, LAFCO staff and the city will work with property owners towards a comprehensive solution that allows for annexation within the Country Club Park area. So commission approval is recommended with the condition of approval, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Does the commission have any questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
None.
Okay. Do we have a motion to take the recommended action?
I'll make a motion to take the recommended action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second to take the recommended action. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion carries. The next item is item 5. And this is filed 1908. And it's at 382 Dorado Way in San Mateo County.
So thank you, Chair Draper. So similar to the application before for 386, this is an outside service agreement for a sewer connection at a neighboring property at 382 Dorado Way, also in Country Club Park. And also, I should mention that the reason why both of these are not on consent, because they would typically be consent items, is because it's unusual that we have seen outside service agreements in Country Club Park and in South City for quite some time. So it's kind of to give a little bit of overview and a little bit of background about why you're seeing those outside service agreements now, and also to give you an update that we are continuing to work with the city. So similar in nature to 386 Dorado, 382 Dorado, there is proposed development on the parcel that includes an addition and potentially a construction of an accessory dwelling unit, along with maintaining that existing house that's on the property, and the septic system would not be adequate for that future development. Similar to 386, the parcel's within the sphere of influence of South City, and again, as mentioned, there is a general plan policy that the city has right now in place that prohibits individual annexations. LAFCo is in support of the outside service agreement, and again, there is a condition of approval for the property owner to enter into an agreement that would be consenting to future annexation of the property to the city. And again, commission approval is recommended with that condition of approval, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does the commission have a question?
Up to one question, because it looks like if you look at Taylor Drive, there it looks like there's some parcels that were incorporated into the city of South San Francisco, and on the other end, it looks like there's also a big chunk that may also be in the city of South San Francisco. Why have they ever been approached with the idea of incorporating the whole? These are all really big parcels. They have an objection for some reason, or is this?
So right now,
And by the way, and if that's not the case, is their policy about we'll only take it all or none? Is that really a way of avoiding taking responsibility for it?
so that was their policy in 1999 when they implemented the general plan. I think there has been talks before with the neighbors that they've wanted to have individual annexations. There was an issue, I think, at one time about financing or issues about infrastructure, about how that would accommodate or be accommodating towards the property owners. And so they had the general plan policy in place in 1999. I don't know if we've had outside service agreements since then. I don't think we have for sewer. I think, and I can't recall the last time we had an annexation.
Well, I can understand why you wouldn't want to piecemeal it in some ways, because like if you on Alta Vista Drive, if you had a couple that it makes, if they call the police, they're going to end up. Some might end up in South City, and some might end up in the sheriff. But it just doesn't make any sense to have this thing that's right in the heart of the city, and their law enforcement services come from the sheriff, and the sheriff is in Redwood City.
So just to add a little bit, there have been a few outside service agreements post 1994 when that 56133 became law. And the city was kind of steadfast about their award-winning general plan that had this policy that said all of it or nothing. And they're now, I think, starting to understand that there's this demand that, number one, there's a demand for infrastructure, and it may not be feasible to have the entire area annexed at once. And so the general plan update is an opportunity to look at that and say maybe phased annexation and some of these funny little pockets could be cleaned up.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've been there, but if I remember right, some of this is like very rural. I mean, if I remember correctly, there's horses and livestock on some of these parcels. So, it's just interesting to drive down and see a cow. So,
Yes, I agree that the general plan update provides an opportunity, and I really encourage LAFCO staff to stay engaged. Any member of the public? Okay, close the public hearing. Is there can you put up the motion so that we can all see it? Whoa.
I got it. By motion, approve LAFCO file number 19-08, proposed outside service agreement for sewer by the City of South San Francisco to a proposed single-family home at 382 Dorado Way, unincorporated San Mateo County, APN 013124-010, pursuant to Government Code Section 56133, less than 1 acre with the condition of approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there opposition? No. Abstain? No. Motion carries. Okay. Item 6.
So item 6 is the legislative report. So staff continues to track the 24 bills as mentioned at the last LAFCo meeting. And with the conclusion of the 1819 legislative session at the California State Capitol, a number of state laws will come into effect come January 1st. These bills are referenced in your agenda packet, but I'll briefly touch on them because it includes AB 508, which makes changes to the State Water Resources Control Board authority to order the consolidation of drinking water systems, AB 600, which makes changes to LAFCo requirements for approving specified annexations to disadvantaged communities. And that was a bill that San Mateo County or San Mateo LAFCO was in opposition to. AB 8122, which makes several non-controversial changes, which is an annual bill to the LAFCO statute. And while it is not a specific LAFCO bill, AB 825, which makes changes to the flood control, the San Mateo County Flood Control District Act, will also be coming into effect January 1st. And in your agenda packet, both the California State Assembly, Local Government Committee, and the California State Senate Committee have compiled their end-of-the-year summary regarding state laws that have been heard by the committee as well, and they're attached to the memo. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. At the conference, they mentioned again that some special legislation is starting to work its through, which will totally bypass LAFCO in local areas. Have you seen those bills specifically coming around recently that, cut out the LAFCO process?
Those are typically specific to a certain county, and Cal LAFCO regularly opposes those. One example that we just experienced here in San Mateo County is the Sea Level Rise Agency, and that was done in a manner using the state legislature because it was felt that the LAFCO process would be too cumbersome and slow, and there was a lot of momentum amongst the cities and the county to get that done. So all of those circumventing LAFCO reorganizations are very closely watched by Cal LAFCO.
Great, thanks.
And I think there was one recently that was in Solano County where LAFCO was actually supportive of it because it was creating a new district, and the LAFCO process wouldn't allow them to have they wanted a larger board than what the enabling legislation would allow them. So with LAFCO support actually in that case, but again, very targeted legislation.
Any other questions? Okay, item 7, which is twofold. One is a report on the conference, and then the sphere, which we just received.
Yes, very briefly, along with Commissioners Horsley, O'Neill, and Lohman, and Rob Bartoli, I attended the 2019 Cal LAFCO conference in Sacramento. And I think that the commissioners and Rob would agree that it was a very solid program. There was a good variety of sessions to attend, and there were some things that we were able to really bring back to the county. One was a presentation by a company that does kind of alternative septic systems that I got that information from that vendor and shared that with environmental health here. And I know that there was also a very similar kind of similar to a mini Flint, Michigan presentation that was done about how the county and the city and LAFCO work together to get a very poor functioning water district dissolved and taken over by the county. And it was a very well, I guess it was a disadvantaged community, yes. Yeah. So there were it was a good variety of programs and well worth attending. I don't know if the board commissioners have anything to add.
Just make one quick comment. There was a key, oftentimes keynote speakers, and you're thinking of LAFCo, what possibly could be of interest, but this guy, it was Mark Abrax, I guess that was, and he was of course selling his book at the same time. And he had a really a wonderful, first of all, it was a great program, and poked a little bit of fun at California. We really think about the problems that the state of California has. This guy really, I think, encapsulated really the essence of all the problems that our new legislator, governor, and all of us are having to confront. So it was really a fascinating presentation. And in fact, some of us have his book now. And I'd be happy to pass it on once I've read it. But it was really, and I've been to about 3 of these conferences in my time. And this, I think, was the best I've ever been to.
Is a book one of those kind of hard things with the little pages?
Yeah, right. You have to hold
Right.
with your hand.
You used to carry them in grammar school? Yeah.
Long time ago, in the ancient days.
What was the name of the book?
I don't know. I have to remember. I don't remember. Let me see what the heck
It's all about water rights and the evolution of water rights.
I've got I haven't read it yet. But first, it's the next book that I read. But it's sitting by.
Rob is reading it, actually. He mentioned he was
Do you have the name of it?
I want to say it's Dreams of the West or
Something like that. Yeah.
I'll get it before we leave.
But that's.
He was an excellent speaker, though.
You can look this guy up. He's a fascinating guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's an immigrant family from
Armenia?
Armenia.
From Armenia? Yeah.
They in Armenia. There's the big. Well, in any case, they were from Armenia, and the family ended up as farmers. I think they were pistachios.
Down in Fresno.
Yeah, Fresno. Got kind of a sort of a history lesson and a lesson about the challenges of agriculture. And the most fascinating thing is that here as he pointed out, our whole water system was based on a population for 10 million, but we have 40 million people. So.
Commissioner Loman?
A couple other things. I attended the morning session after driving up way early in the morning up there, but it was interesting, I thought, because we had sort of a presentation by West Sacramento. I don't know if anybody's ever been up there, but it was basically created out of nothing. It was like an industrial wasteland, and they gradually started cleaning it up and getting designs. They're putting in gorgeous housing, affordable housing, civic centers. They got a ballpark for a little league, but they had to fight Sacramento for that. But that was interesting. Then we got a tour of a big rice factory. But more specifically, they were talking about changes we might see in LAFCo in the future, was I thought also interesting, as both what they call planning for and reacting to climate change and disasters. That in MSRs and things like that, as we move forward, we're going to have to start asking questions about how are you prepping for climate change and all of those. There was a little item, I guess probably more in cities and things like that, look into pension systems and how pensions are doing in the different areas. And what I thought was also interesting is the LAFCo mission is threefold. It's protecting ag, protecting open space, and stopping urban sprawl. And they mentioned that's nice, except then the other part of the government says, and now build 100,000 houses at the same time. So how LAFCOs are going to adapt to this conflict and protecting stuff and building houses all at the same time is going to be a big conflict. So I thought it was a great meeting, and there's some meeting lots of interesting people and people doing other things that are always interesting. So I thought it was good.
I would second everything my fellow commissioners said, and coming from an area, from a city that's trying to move forward, the big advantage West Sacramento had was they had a blank slate.
Yep.
They didn't have to tear anything down. They didn't have to they might have eminent domain, but it was a blank slate. They just needed to paint it. And I thought that was really kind of interesting and would be nice to have in some respects, that stuff and all that. But yeah, that was interesting with the rice and that book guy was really interesting also. The book guy. And I did like there was a whole thing from San Diego. The city of San Diego did a whole tech thing, and they actually have some sort of sensors that they're able to put on light poles, and they can see, does this garbage can need to be emptied? If there's a lot of muggings, they can record what's going on and get pictures of the people doing it, and they can actually tailor it so it doesn't go onto private property. It stays just on the public right away. But I thought that was a great tech thing to do it. And wow, one agency designed a whole park by using drones and showing people different things from the air about the drones and stuff. And I thought it was pretty interesting how some people can get that done.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, we come to the thing we do every year, and that is appointment of chair and vice chair. This is item number 8. The rotation would be for Josh, who is now vice chair, to become chair, and I understand through Martha that he has said he's fine with becoming the chair. So the vice chair would come from the county. So I'm going to look to my left and see which of the two of you would.
If called, I will serve.
Okay.
But Mr. Horsley being the senior.
But I've been the chair a couple times, so I will nominate Supervisor. I'll nominate Supervisor Slocum.
Okay. Do we need a motion on this, or do we just say, yay, verily, that's it?
I don't believe we've done this by motion in the past. It's
Just as
been
a
a
point.
nomination.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like it will be, or in fact, it will be Josh Cosgrove for chair and Supervisor Slocum for the vice chair. Alrighty, and now we go on to the other thing that we do annually, and that is appointment of Budget Committee and Legislative Policy Committee for next year.
I'm happy to stay in a budget committee.
And I'm happy on the Legislative Committee. I like that.
I think I was on the budget committee last year. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Josh is moving up to president, then I'd be willing to serve on the legislative committee also.
Because we have 2 alternates on it. It's good to have a commissioner. Right?
Do we need a third person? Do we have a third person?
To the
we
budget.
On the
Budget? Should
on the
be
budget, do we have?
Harvey or yourself?
Um,
I don't see Harvey jumping.
If no one else is interested, I'm an alternate, so I don't know if I'm allowed.
Oh, yeah. I think.
I don't think there's a prohibition.
I don't think there's a prohibition.
That'll teach you to show.
All right, I'm on the. I'll do it.
So for clarification, this is for the budget committee?
Yes.
Well, that puts 2 city on there, though. Is that an issue?
Well, that's a good point. So one of the
Okay. Maybe it should be.
the effort has been to kind of balance with city, public, special district, and county.
so that means I
No
should be on
offense,
the
Harvey.
budget
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
You're,
which
you're,
I'm fine.
you're freed.
You're freed.
Thank you, Don.
He can be the
I'm
alternate
not
on
on the
that, though.
legislative
So
committee.
just for clarification, the budget committee would be Commissioners O'Neill, Draper, Horsley.
Right.
And on the legislative committee would be, well, we now only have 1 person, unless we reappoint the 2 alternates that were also on it. So if, Commissioner Lohman, on the Who else has volunteered?
For legislation, Commissioner Martin was on legislation, and
Jim
Jim O'Neill.
Yeah.
And what you might want to consider doing is appointing them, and then you'd make a change in January if they're not willing and able.
Let's do that. That gives continuity. Okay. Sounds good. Unless, Harvey, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
You'll let that pass.
That's fine.
All right. Alrighty. Now we're on to item 10. Does commissioners have any other reports that they'd like to make? Seeing none, staff?
Just very briefly, in addition to the LAFCo conference, Rob and I attended the California Special District Association's first roundtable on climate adaptation, which was held in Berkeley on November 6th. And it was their first effort at holding that kind of roundtable, and there will be more to follow. But one of the things that I think was just kind of agreed upon was that the special districts tend to be inadvertently left out of a lot of the discussions concerning roundtable, because agencies, they look at the land use agencies first. And so this commission already has a policy that will kind of integrate sea level rise and climate adaptation in the municipal service reviews. And I think we've also given information to the Office of Sustainability about the special districts in the county so that they can be included as well. And then just very briefly, other projects that we're working on, or I can update you on, is the City of Menlo Park. City Council has given staff direction to continue processing the West Menlo Triangle annexation, which was submitted in 2015 and then faltered in large part because of city staff bandwidth. And also we're working with the City of Belmont and County Planning and Public Works on annexation inquiries in the harbor industrial area to try and look at a more comprehensive approach than individual annexations. We are continuing our work with San Francisco Public Utilities Commission and City of Redwood City concerning the retail customers in the Redwood City area that are actually retail customers of SFPUC, and they're connected to the transmission line. And the cities of San Francisco wants to correct that. We've already talked about Country Club Park. And then we're finally concluding the hiring process for the administrative secretary to be shared between LAFCo and the Airport Roundtable. And that person, we're hoping, will be on board before the end of the year. And with that, I'd like to thank Janeth Lujan from the Planning Department, who's been so gracious as to step in and fill in for us in that regard. And then lastly, the last kind of first round municipal service reviews that remain to be completed include Foster City, Burlingame, Hillsborough, Millbrae, San Bruno, and South San Francisco. And we're actively working on South San Francisco in the Resource Conservation District, which is a district that, a regional district that is due for an MSR.
I have a question in that regard. We have learned that asking questions or not positions, but the areas of interest is a really important step. And will we be seeing those questions before they actually go out? And or said differently, what role do we have in helping to form those questions?
Are you referring to, say, the municipal service review surveys?
Yes. Well, I mean, we've talked about how climate change and pension issues and other special issues are things that we should be looking at. And I don't have any specifics for the cities that you mentioned, but one of the trainings that we went to said that the commission should be actively involved with the formation of the questions or the identification. So I was just going to ask, what are you seeing as our role in that step?
We welcome the commission's participation in that. I think what we could do is place on the agenda for January the survey tools that we're using and kind of what the process is. Part of it is really sitting down with the agency and sitting down with staff to make sure that they understand it's not an audit or an inquisition. It's a study that helps them tell their story. Yeah. But we can bring the survey tools to the commission by way of the agenda. Okay. The alternative would be for the policy committee to look at it.
Well, we've also had oftentimes the Legislative Policy Committee looks at it first, and then it comes to the whole commission. That's probably a good way to do it.
We can do that.
I just thought of one more super critical thing we got from the conference. I had one where we actually walked across the street and went into the legislature buildings. We were all sitting there, and they dragged Hertzberg into the meeting, and he made him stand up in front of us and say hi. So people were taking selfies with Hertzberg there. So one of our creators.
Anything else for the good of the order? Then we stand adjourned, or we sit adjourned.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays, yes. Rick, did you walk across the